Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome, everyone. Nice to have everyone here tonight. Alhamdulillah. Very excited. Alhamdulillah, I see the numbers are going up. We're up above 30 now. Alhamdulillah. Let me share my screen. And Bismillah. Okay. Uh, let's get started, inshallah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashraf al-anbiya'i wal-mursaleen, sayyidina wa nabiyana wa maulana Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim. Welcome, everyone. It's really nice to have you all here on a Wednesday evening. Been a little while since we did a webinar, so exciting to have people back. It's always really exciting to see how many people sign up for these different things. It makes me feel, alhamdulillah, that we're filling a real need within the community. And so inshallah, let's get started. So let's just start with a conscious Bismillah. So just let's refresh our niyyah. The reason that we are here is for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ya awwal al-awwalin, ya akhir al-akhirin, ya dhul quwwat al-mateen. Ya Allah, please put khair and barakah in our time together. Ya Allah, please help me enlighten my tongue, make only good things come out of it, and may all the people here benefit from this knowledge, and may our children find success both in this world and the next. Ameen. Okay, so in Hamza, we have the chat going. We're now up over 80 people here, mashallah, and it's the number keeps on growing. So one of the questions that just came in, will we receive the recording? Yes, inshallah. If you attend today, if you registered today, you will get the recording. But that being said, I would still highly recommend that you pay attention, that you take notes, that you focus. The reality is very frequently people sort of are digital hoarders. They get a lot of recordings. They don't go back and watch. The time for action and the time to learn is right now. So in the chat, could you please share your name and then where you're joining from and your favorite book? Okay, so your name, where you're joining from, and your favorite book. So if you guys could start writing that in the chat, it will be really interesting to see who is here. All communication is going to be done through the chat, so I'm not going to be unmuting people. Maybe at the very end when we do Q&A, we can unmute some people. But otherwise, if you have questions, you can put them there in the chat, inshallah. Let's see, what do we have? We have Hanan and Adam from Waltham. Niel, favorite book is Dune. Nice. I read that one a couple of years ago. Excellent. Safi from Houston. Bilal from Texas, Houston. Favorite book is the Quran. MashaAllah. Amir from Detroit. Favorite book is Win Every Argument by Mehdi Hassan. Yeah, I'd love to learn more about that. I've heard good things about that book, but I haven't read it myself. Farhia Hassan from Seattle, Eat the Frog. Yep, I love the that technique for time management. That's a great one. Wa alaikum salam. Minna from New Hampshire. Alia from New York. So guys, if you have a favorite book, can you just drop that favorite book into the chat? It's always interesting. I learn a lot about the community. And of course, from the college perspective, being able to talk about books is something pretty important, even if you're a STEM major and so on. Let's see, Rehab from Tampa, The Names of Allah. Muhammad Ma'alim. Hafsa from New York, Men and Women Around the Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, mashallah. Zina from Rhode Island, Catcher in the Rye, mashallah. I taught that a few years ago to my 9th grade students back when I taught English. Shahul from Texas, mashallah. Selma from North York, favorite book is And Then There Were None. Another great one, Agatha Christie, great mystery. I've also taught that one before. Homera, New York City, Too Hard to Choose. Most recent favorite is Secrets of Divine Love. Yes, that is an amazing book that made it onto one of my top 5 lists last year as well. Soha from Texas, favorite book, Not Even Bones. Excellent. Abir from favorite book, A Place of Refuge. Toronto and the Quran, mashallah. Another, And Then There Were None. Salt to the Sea, mashallah. So many great ones coming in. Dune and Hyperion, When Breath Becomes Air, another great one. That's Atul Gawande, I believe. The Power of Habit. Yep, Charles Duhigg. Excellent. Nice to see all these books. Mashallah, and a lot of great Islamic books. Phantom Tollbooth, another wonderful one, mashallah. Abraham Fulfilled, The Giving Tree, Meeting Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Harry Potter, Going Solo. Yeah, that's a great one. That was on our summer reading list a couple years ago. Life of Pi, my daughter just read that one. Nice. One of Us is Lying. Yep, another great one. So many great things there. Learned a lot about the audience and so on. All right, I'm going to start a little poll. Hopefully this will work. So if you guys could just quickly answer the questions in the poll, about what best describes you, mother, father, and so on. It's always really helpful for me to see who is in the audience. So I'll leave this open for another minute or so. Just reclaim. And okay, I'm gonna give you 10 more seconds. We have 80 people. About 2/3 of you have answered the poll. Finish it off. Oh, we're up to 90. Now people are coming. All right, I'm going to end the poll and share the data. All right, so here's who we have tonight with us. 75% of you responded, so that's pretty good. So it's about a 50-50 split between parents and students, which is great, mashallah. Mothers outnumber fathers about 2-1, mashallah. And then high school students, 51% of you guys are high school students. So that makes a lot of sense. That's the, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to advance that. Let's see. The next question. What grade will your child be? So 40% of you are in the 12th grade, which makes sense, especially given this target audience. And then another 25% are in 11th grade, right? Or your children are. And then we have some of the younger students as well. What kind of schools? Okay, so about 60% go to public school, almost a quarter go to Islamic school. And then a mixture of other situations after that. Pretty cool. And then in terms of where you're joining from, a lot from the Northeast, about 40%. Quite a lot from the Midwest and the Southwest, a lot of Texas folks here. And then I know there are a ton of California people registered. It is a little early on California, so I think they'll keep on joining as the things continue. All right, so now we know who's here. Let's just do a little housekeeping. So this is a really big group. Okay, we currently have we had, I think, close to 400 people sign up for this, and we have a lot of people here right now. So there are two things that are enabled, both the chat and the Q&A. So the chat is a place for general comments and I'll ask you to interact in the chat as I already have. And then the Q&A, you might have to click the more button to find it, but there's a Q&A. That's where you actually put questions that you want us to look at towards the end when we get to the Q&A portion. Okay, so if you put them in the chat, they'll get buried in the chat and they'll potentially get lost. Whereas if you put them in the Q&A part, then we will be able to find those and make sure to address those. When you hear something, it's always helpful for me to know which things we're talking about are really important to you, which really resonate with you. So I learned this from one of my teachers. If you hear something really interesting or new or that blows your mind or anything, can you guys just put 3 exclamation points in the chat? So let's practice this right now. Can you put 3 exclamation points in the chat if you are hearing me? Okay, I'm seeing them pop off, mashallah. Jazakallah khair. All right, so we know that works. So if over the course of this webinar things happen and you see that, please put that in there. That really helps us a lot. As I said, share the questions in the Q&A. I think you can upvote your favorites. We will try to keep this to 90 minutes. We'll try to keep it to 75 minutes and then Q&A. Do not spam the chat. This has been an issue in the past where people just keep on posting the exact same thing, or the Q&A, or be disruptive in any way. We're doing this as a service, and it's very disruptive when people do that. I'm sure that won't be an issue, but just wanted to mention that. Same thing with raising your hand. I'm for the sake of streamlining, I ask you guys to keep your hands down. If you have a question, please put it in the chat. My wife Ruhina is here. She's also in the audience. She can answer questions as well. So if you see her answering, then she's answering them as the FBC team member as well. And she'll also keep me informed if things happen. All right, let's keep going. So I know that, alhamdulillah, I know many of you, you've met me before, but for those of you who haven't, I wanted to quickly introduce myself. My name is Hamza Henshaw, alhamdulillah, and a few things about me. Alhamdulillah, I was born and raised in Boston, where I am today, outside of Boston. And I became Muslim when I was only 15 years old. I went to a boarding school outside of Boston, and that's where, alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me hidayah at a Christian boarding school. That's where I ended up finding Islam, alhamdulillah. So I went on from there to study at Harvard, and I studied Near Eastern languages and civilizations. I did some economics, and after a short career in Islamic finance and investing, I transferred over towards education, and now I'm coming up closer to 25 years. I need to update this slide. Almost 25 years as an educator all over the world in overseas in the Emirates and Morocco, and also in private schools here in the States and in Islamic schools as well. And alhamdulillah, over the course of that time, working at an Islamic school here in New England, I gained a lot of expertise in helping Muslims navigate this whole college process. Having done it myself and alhamdulillah, having gotten good results, I really tried to learn a lot about how it all works. There's so much noise out there. There's so much talk about college admissions, but I went and I tried to really understand how it worked and then implement a system within my school that would help Muslim students, get really great college results. And alhamdulillah, the system worked, and we were able to send students off to many of the top colleges. But eventually, I realized that by staying within just a school environment, I was only able to help a small number of people, whereas I really want to help the ummah as a whole. So back in early 2023, I decided to found 5 Before College. And the goal is to help Muslim teenagers get into their dream colleges, launching them towards success in this world and the next. So just a little bit about the name 5 Before College, right? So 5 Before College really, this name has 2 parts. The first one is actually it's somewhat ironic thing to be talking about today, because the main purpose of today's talk is really speaking to seniors who are in the middle of college applications, or juniors who are staring down the college applications. But 5 before college, really the message is that the way to really excel and succeed in the college process is to start early, to start 5 years before college, right? So the real time, and I see that there are families like this and students like this in the crowd, to be learning all the stuff that we're talking about today and to really start strategizing and thinking about this college process is 5 years before college, way back when you're in 8th grade, right? If you are able to, this was one of the secrets inside the Islamic school where I taught, and we had the 6th through 12th graders all together on one campus, and the younger students were constantly hearing us talk about college and giving the talks, and I was their teacher as well, in addition to being the guidance counselor and college placement person. So this culture of college permeated, whereas what happens now is students often don't really start thinking about it until it's too late, and then they come and they try to get help, and I am going to try to help. That's what today's session is about. But the real way I can help you, the best way I can help you, is to help you start early, 5 years before college. And then the question obviously is, what do you do during those 5 years, right? So this is where the Prophet ﷺ, in his beautiful hadith, gives us guidance. The Prophet ﷺ said, take benefit of 5 before 5. Right? Take benefit of 5 before 5. Your youth before your old age, your health before your sickness, your wealth before your poverty, your free time before your busyness, and your life before your death. Okay? So this is a beautiful hadith. I'm sure many of us know it. I've given khutbahs about it a number of times. I think it contains really everything we need to know about time management and productivity, and everything is just inside this one hadith, right? But it also teaches high school students how they can maximize those 5 years before college and unlock the best results for their future life. So focusing on youth before old age, your full-time job as a student, as a youth, is to be a student, right? Academics are your full-time job. And even though there's a lot more to the college application than just your grades and your GPA and things like that, that is the single most important part of your application. So it's something that you need to take care of, right? And what is the way to do that? What is one of the most important ways? It's what we started with today, reading, right? There is a huge correlation between students who read and students who don't read. The students who read, I have no doubt about their future success. When a 6th grader comes to me, when I used to teach 6th grade, and they said, I read 20 books this summer, I used to think to myself, Alhamdulillah, 6 years from now, 7 years from now, when I'm placing that student in college, there's going to be absolutely no problem. And sure enough, I've never had a student who's a voracious reader who did not do well in this whole process. So for those of you with younger children, one of the best things you can do is encourage them to have a reading habit. As you can see, I have a few books behind me. Definitely one of the greatest things my parents gave me, sort of a love of reading and a budget also for buying books. Health before sickness, right? We need to take care of our physical health through athletics and sports, and our mental health, right, through wellness activities and taking care of ourselves. And things like we need, if we're not healthy physically and mentally, we're not going to maximize these 5 before college. And sports in particular is something that I think some Muslim families, especially in Islamic schools, they don't put enough emphasis on this, and it's something that they were sometimes lacking in. Wealth before poverty. During this time in high school, we should also be exploring our careers. Okay, many times students come to me and they tell me their major, or they tell me what they intend to do. And then when I ask them, okay, what have you done in high school to explore that major, to see if that's the right thing for you? Usually they have, very frequently, they don't have any response, right? High school is a time to be exploring these possible careers, to be doing the research, and then going out and getting actual practical hands-on training through internships and other things. Also, college is a huge expense. And so learning how scholarships work and learning how to unlock the most need-based aid and the most merit aid that you can is a huge part of succeeding in this college process. Free time before busyness. We all know, if you know anything about college, you know how important the extracurriculars are, how important the things that you do outside of school, the clubs that you're a part of, or the passion projects that you yourself launch, right? And even more important probably to our overall being is our friends, right? You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So what is your suhbah like? Right? Are those friends who are reminding you of Allah? Are those friends who are pushing you towards, being your best self? Or are those people who are dragging you down? And finally, we have life before death, right? This is where our Islam comes in, our akhlaq, our deen. This is in many ways the most important one. This is something that comes through on the college application and your recommendation letters and so on. If we have the akhlaq of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right, then people can't help but be attracted to us. The brother who introduced me to Islam, right, he didn't do it through his words. He did it through his actions. He did it through his sincerity. He did it through his generosity, right? He did it by implementing and inculcating some of the qualities of the Prophet ﷺ in his life, and that made it incredibly attractive. That made it a magnetic attraction. So Hamza, this whole 5 before college formula really works. Hamza, these are some of the acceptances and places where some of my former students have gone, and there are many, many more that don't fit onto this slide. But it's not just about getting into college, right? Getting into college is part of it. It's really about getting through college, right? About 50% of high school students actually go on to attend a college. Almost 5 million students transfer colleges after 1 year. And to me, that's a sign of them not getting very good guidance during this college process, of them going through this process, sort of mailing it in, ending up at a school, wasting a full year of their life, right? And then having to transfer to another school. Or they didn't get into the school that they really wanted to, and they ended up having to go to a school that they weren't very happy about, and then they end up having to transfer again because they didn't put their best foot forward with the college process. And also the 4-year graduation rate of those people who enter college, right? Only 41% of them have graduated 4 years later. Right? We think of college as a 4-year track. Only 41% of the 50% of people who even enter college are actually graduating 4 years later. 6 years later, it's only 62%. So again, this speaks to me as evidence of very limited guidance that students are getting, because they're not going to the right place, a place where they can succeed. Sometimes they go to colleges that where they really just don't fit the campus culture and so on, and they end up fading out and either transferring or dropping out of college altogether, right? So overall, 40 to 50% of the people who enter college don't end up ever getting degrees, right? So part of my mission here is not just to help people get into college, it's to help them get into the right college, a college where they can succeed and where they can find success and where they can, continue to go. So why is there a need for people like me? Private admissions consultants, right? This is a chart that I discovered that's really quite scary and instructive. This is the student to school counselor ratio, right? And as you can see, on a national level, I think the number is 415 to 1. So at your average school, the guidance counselor has about 415 students who are assigned to them. So you can imagine that if you have 415 students, you don't have time. It's simply impossible for you to get to know your students all that well. You compare that to my situation at Al Noor, that I try to recreate now at this 5 before college, where you work with a small group of students. We had graduating classes anywhere from 10 to 20 students or so, right? I knew those students incredibly well. I taught them for 5 years, right? I knew them incredibly well, right? On average, the average public school guidance counselor spends 38 minutes over the course of 4 years with their students, right? 38 minutes over the course of 4 years. When I compare that to what I'm able to do, for my clients and how well I get to know them, there's really no comparison. Other things, we have community specific challenges here within the Muslim community. So many parents did not go to American universities. They don't necessarily understand the nuances of this application system, right? There's a lack of high quality content aimed directly at the Muslim community. And finally, especially in the wake of, what the tragedy happening over in Gaza, and just the election and all these other forces that are going on, there are major fears about Islamophobia. And for those of us, where Islam is a huge part of our identity, there's a worry about how much of this can we actually show on our college application. Is this going to help me? Is this going to hurt me? What should I even be looking for as a Muslim student as I'm evaluating different colleges, and so on. So there was really a gap in the market that I came to try to fill. And my mission, my goal is, inshallah, to help create a generation of spiritually intelligent Muslim leaders, right, who are striving for Jannat al-Firdaus, and they're striving to get to Jannat al-Firdaus by working and fixing our broken world, right? The world today, it's, you cannot open the newspaper, you cannot turn on the television without just being, beset by anxiety about the direction that things are going in this world. And we as Muslims have a responsibility, as people who have been given the truth, to do something about it. And I think there's no better way that I can help uplift the future generations than helping them get launched towards careers and towards lives of purpose, right? We want to create an army of magnetic Muslims who attract people to Islam through their akhlaq, right? Just like the brother Nabil, who first invited me to Islam through his character, right? We we want to help Muslims build generational wealth that will fund institutions. When I walk around the Harvard campus, there are names on all the different buildings there, right? And they're all very few of those names are Muslim names, right? If everyone doesn't need to become extremely wealthy like that, but we do, people who have that aptitude and that as a desire, we have that opportunity, right? Our children have enormous opportunities, and this can be the stepping stone towards that. And also, my hope is to broaden the scope of the professions, that we need Muslims in all different areas. We tend to focus on only a few small number of professions within our community, and I'm really hoping to broaden the scope of that, different things that people can do. And finally, just remember this, one of my favorite sayings: your I can is more important than your IQ. Right? So if you're a student thinking, you're listening to this and you're worried about your GPA, or you're worried about your SAT score being too low, or you're just filled with a lot of anxiety, always remember this quote: your I can is more important than your IQ, right? The real world does not reward raw intelligence, whatever that is, right? The real world does not reward A's and 4.0s and things like that. The real world rewards people who have a can-do attitude, who feel that they can go out and they can actually solve problems, right? And the reality is, our iman is the source of our I can, right? Your iman is the source of your I can, because the reality is we cannot do, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can do anything and everything, right? And by following Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by bringing ourselves onto the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? By doing these things, we can tap into this unseen power. We can tap into this barakah, right? And we can accomplish amazing things. And so if there's nothing else, that's what I really want to inspire in the next generation, this belief in themselves, this belief that they are able to go out and change the world, regardless of what the numbers on their applications say. So as important as those things are, and I'm not discounting them, and it does have an impact on where you should apply and strategy and so on, just never let yourself be defined by those numbers, inshallah. Okay. So if anyone is interested in downloading our free ebook, you can scan that QR code there, or I can put this in the chat, I guess. Sorry, I can't seem to put it in the chat. Maybe Ruhina can somehow get it in the chat. Or someone else can. All right, let's keep on going. All right. So this summer we ran the something called the College Essay Boot Camp, and later today at the end of this presentation I'm going to be introducing something called the Ihsan Admissions Intensive, which is sort of like the continuation and extension of the College Essay Boot Camp. So I wanted, you've been hearing me talk, I wanted to let you hear from my students themselves and what they had to say about the boot camp this summer. So hopefully the sound will come through.
And I give it a 10 out of
10. Is the sound coming through? Can someone just say yes? Okay, great.
10. Take this course. There's so much to learn, so much value.
Community in where I felt like I could be vulnerable and open up.
This course has also really increased my confidence and made me feel a lot better about, getting into college.
Specifically, I really enjoyed how there, at least for the premium tier, there was a specific mentor you could work with to have your essays looked at and guide you through the process of writing these essays, especially the supplementals and the personal statement. And also, there were office hours that I really, really liked. It was really personal with the office hours, which I really liked.
I really thought that this course was valuable because there were specific mentors that were specialized in each topic for each class, and that really helped get a lot of information about each thing that we learned. And I also thought that the office hours were very helpful because we got a lot of one-on-one.
My parents actually forced me to take it. I didn't want to at first, but later on I learned this is such an amazing opportunity for me, and I learned so much through it.
I learned a lot about just getting the thoughts out of my head and into the notebook or into the computer, just being able to get it all out.
I really liked the workshops that were interactive, where you got to practice the information that you learned during the workshop. That was really enjoyable to me.
I would say that the office hours were also my favorite part of the course.
My favorite aspect about this course was how much there was one-on-one discussion, especially with people who are close to me, both in Islam and both in majors. They picked the perfect mentors for me, and they allowed me to grow and really find who I am. And more than that, just write amazing essays and have an amazing application.
Learned how to pick out my topic too, learned for my personal statement.
The main advice that I got was just start writing, which I really thought was helpful because I was having a lot of writer's block during the summertime and I couldn't really get anything down. I was staring at my screen, trying to write something, couldn't get anything down. And this college essay bootcamp really helped with that.
I was able to gain a lot of skills in overcoming writer's block and just starting to write an essay that is very compelling.
I really loved how the overall idea was finishing your early applications.
I really feel confident about my...
All right. For the sake of time, I'm gonna cut it off there. But it's great to see those students. And Hamza, that was just a 2-week program, so it's good to see that there was so much benefit from that. All right. So let's get into the meat of today's program. So what is the job of your application? What's the job of your college application? So first and foremost, it's to breathe life into your profile, right? It's to turn you from a 2-dimensional person on a piece of paper to a 3-dimensional living, breathing person that they can imagine being on their college campus. And the goal is to transform your AO, that's admissions officer, from a gatekeeper to an advocate. Right? Admissions officers, they have to go through a crushing number of applications. They sometimes are reading 50 applications a day, and each application is 10 to 20 pages long, right? So they only have a short period of time. So most of the time, the admissions officers are gatekeepers, right? They're people who are keeping you out, right? But every now and again, if you can capture the attention and imagination of your admissions officer, then they turn into an advocate, and they're the ones who will go into the admissions committee and actually try to help you get there. So for our 10 things, 10 ways to level up your application before you click submit, right? We're going to talk about 3 sort of main buckets, right? The admissions strategy, the core of the application itself, and then revision and proofreading tools. All right. So there will be a fair amount of information here. I do recommend that you write things down as you get them. Like, I will send this out, but nothing will stick in your mind as much as what happens when when you hear it live. So bucket number 1, admission strategy. So the single most important thing that you need to do, and the place where, to be honest, having a consultant or a guide can help the most, is making sure that you apply to the right schools. So before you even get into the application itself, where you apply is probably the single most important thing in determining your future, right? And what many Muslim families do, and what many families everywhere do, is they simply go to the US News and World Report or some other college ranking thing, and they make their entire list based off of someone else's recommendations about the prestigious schools and so on. And as a result, students are funneled towards colleges that sometimes make no sense for them at all, given their profile, given who they are, given the type of student they are, right? And it's not even, it's not like that every single one of those colleges is the same, right? There are 8 different colleges in the Ivy League. They are dramatically different from one another. The only thing they have in common is that they happen to be part of the same athletic conference, right? And yet people just make decisions about where to apply based purely on name recognition and things like this, right? So you want to have a balanced mix of colleges. You want to apply to colleges that are aligned with your academic, personal, and financial needs. And you want to first, above all, focus on fit. Find a college where you can succeed. You don't want to be someone who gets into college and then finds that it's not the right fit for them, right? I've seen that happen time and time again, where a student desperately wants to get into a college. They convince themselves that it's the right place to go, right? And then they didn't listen to that voice in their head. There are more than 4,000 colleges and universities in the United States, and there are lots of fantastic ones. So common college list mistakes: chasing prestige for prestige's sake. Listen, Hamza, I went to Harvard myself. It's a fantastic school, and I have helped students go there, and I'm sure there are people in this audience today who that would be a great fit for, and by all means we should go all in on trying to make that happen. But don't think that that's the only way to succeed in this whole process, to go to one of those top 10 schools, top 20 schools, right? You want to go to the school that fits for you. And another issue: overlooking lesser known schools, right? A lot of times when I ask people about their college list, the only schools on there are schools that are very, very well known, right? They're not aware of other schools that maybe even are in the same geographic area, right? That are a little less well known, or they write off the liberal arts colleges. There are some absolutely fantastic schools. I've had enormous success with students who have gone off to schools like Williams and Amherst, Middlebury, Bowdoin, Bates. These are all in the Northeast because that's where I'm mainly focused. These are smaller schools. They have a real focus on their undergraduate education and so on. And yet many families don't know anything about them. And if you mention it, they say, "Oh, isn't that a liberal arts school?" As if you can't become a doctor going to a liberal arts school, as if you can't become an engineer going to a liberal arts school. Harvard is a liberal arts school, right? Fundamentally, the Ivy League colleges are all liberal arts schools. So I think this writing off of schools like that is definitely problematic. Letting the sticker prices scare you off, right? If you look at what colleges actually charge, it probably would scare us all. But the reality is, using good admission strategy and getting good advice, there's a very good chance you won't have to pay that full sticker price depending on the school, right? And so I always tell people, don't you know, you should never cross a school off of your list based on what it costs, right? There's a chance that once the offers come out and everything, then cost becomes a major consideration. But don't close the door before the door has opened. Imposing strict geographic limitations, right? So for a lot of Muslim families, and this is a big difference between from us and some other communities, we often really only want to focus on schools where we can live at home, right? Or are within a very, very short drive of where we live, right? And that's understandable. And you know, sometimes that is the best plan, and it is oftentimes one of the ways to save some money. At the same time, you know, there are so many colleges out there, and the real college experience of living on campus and so on can be a life-changing thing that can help people. And it also helps people oftentimes come into their Islam when they are in a place where they need to, you know, they're the ones waking themselves up for Fajr. They're the ones who are trying to create Muslim community. For people who have grown up in the bubble their whole life, inshallah, they have a solid foundation. In order for them to really fully embrace their deen, they sometimes have to, you know, go out of the nest. That's what so many of the Muslim parents did, right? So many of the Muslim parents who today are trying to protect their children, they themselves came to this country with $5 in their pocket and a dream of building something big, right? And now that they have these nice, beautiful houses and other things, they're so reluctant to let their children have some sort of experience like that. Right. So again, this is not one size fits all. This is why you need individual attention. Every student is different, but there is a chance that expanding the geographic launch search will help a lot. And then ignoring Muslim campus life, right? That some schools, you know, are dramatically different than others when it comes to the quality of Muslim campus life. The number of Muslims on campus. Do they have a Muslim chaplain? Is there halal food in the dining halls? What is the local Muslim community like? Are you able to go to the masjid? How many people come for Jummah? Right? All these kinds of questions, right? That many Muslims don't consider at all when they're building their college list. All right. Next, after you've chosen where to go, the next biggest thing is being strategic in your choice of major, right? When it comes to your major, the admissions rates can vary very significantly by major, right? So some majors are extremely competitive to get into, and other majors are considerably less competitive to get into, right? And then when you couple that with the fact that 80% of students across the country change their major at least once, and on average, the average student changes their major 2.5 times, a lot of people build their entire college search around a particular major. And the reality is very frequently people do change those majors, right? And so it sometimes makes sense to be a little bit strategic about applying. This is just for Harvard in particular. These are acceptance rates. You see they're all pretty low, but applying as an engineering or computer science person, right, is below 5% acceptance rate, whereas applying for something within the humanities is above a 7% acceptance rate. So it's almost double your admissions rate based on where you're applying. And that's, you know, this is just one particular school, but this is true at many, many different schools, right? So when it comes to this, the mistake is a lot of times people self-select into the most competitive applicant pools. So as you can probably imagine, in my conversations with Muslim families, certain majors come up again and again. Okay, some of the most popular are computer science, right, and pre-med, right, or and engineering as well, right. So those majors are among the most competitive of any major. Now, I'm not saying not to apply for that, right? But only apply for that if that's what your background attests to, right? Do not, if you say that you want to do computer science because you hear a lot about AI and you hear that, you know, that's where the money is or something like that, but then you haven't taken any computer science, or you took one computer science class, but you haven't done any coding, you don't have any real world experience, it's just a theoretical thing for you, and you're applying to like a place known for its computer science program, you're making a strategic blunder by putting yourself in the most competitive applicant pool possible, right? I can't tell you how strong the people who get into computer science at a place like Carnegie Mellon or Johns Hopkins or places like that are known for it are just off the charts strong. And some of you probably have that type of background, inshallah, right? But if you don't, that's okay. Just don't, I would not self-select into that particular applicant pool, right? So choosing majors that don't align with your coursework and extracurriculars. That's why it's really helpful when you get everything down on the Common App and you have all your activities and you think about yourself and you take this bird's eye view of your life, right? The whole story should make sense. There should be a narrative there, right? A lot of times what happens is people are seeking lucrative majors, right? Despite having limited interest in them, right? As I said in the beginning, I have no problem. Inshallah, I want to help people be very successful both in akhirah but also here in the dunya, right? There is this reality that going to some of these top colleges opens up opportunities for you, right? But don't think that there's only one path to these lucrative careers, right? Doing something that you don't really enjoy, right, is not the path to wealth. The way to become really wealthy and the way to be really successful is to do something that you genuinely love, that you can become world class in. That you do something that you're interested in, that you're willing to put the time and energy in to honing your craft so that you can become one of the best in the world at that thing. And if you become the best in the world at something, no matter what it is, right, you can be very successful. I in a master class with this Australian blogger. He's a writer. Mashallah, he's built a 8-figure business off of the back of his writing. People say that writers don't make any money. Mashallah, he's built an extremely successful business because he followed what he loved rather than what society was telling him to do. And then not leveraging less competitive majors, right? So when I applied to Harvard, right, I recently become Muslim. I didn't know any Arabic, and I had some vague vision of being sort of a go-between between the Middle East and the West, right? That as an American-born Muslim, I would be equally comfortable like in a boardroom in New York City and like in a masjid in Dubai or Cairo or something like that. And so that's sort of how I framed my application and how I framed what I said that I wanted to major, Near Eastern languages and civilizations. Okay, if I had gone in a different direction and I had tried to say that I was a future computer scientist when I didn't have the background to back it up, I can almost guarantee you I would have had different results. So if a university has a program, they have hired professors, they need to accept people for that program. So you have 100 people going for one program and only 10 people going for the other program. Obviously, strategically, sometimes it makes sense, right, to do that, especially when so many people change their major. Now, there are lots of caveats here. This is not a one-size-fits-all. Sometimes it's very difficult to switch into engineering program if you didn't get in the beginning, and there are all sorts of other things. But this chart here is about, for pre-med in particular, the acceptance rates based on the undergraduate major. And as you can see, most people who want to do pre-med do biology, biological sciences, right? There's a 36% acceptance rate for people who do biology. For people who do humanities, right, there's a 44% acceptance rate. Now, again, this is data. There are many more biological sciences people than humanities people, and I wouldn't read too much into any one data point, but the fact of the matter is, it is easier to distinguish yourself on, let's say, a medical school application if you studied something a little bit different, so you look a little bit different on the paper than what everyone else looks like. Okay, then you once you've figured out where you want to apply, what you want to study, right? And that all comes on the Common App when you choose, which course of study you're doing. Then you need to have a clear early application strategy, right? So there are two different ways of applying early. What applying early means is it's submitting an application before the regular deadline. And when you do that, you typically get notified earlier about whether you got in or not. For most colleges, the early application deadline is November 1st. However, some colleges it's as early as October 15th, right? Coming up very, very soon, right? Whereas the regular deadline tends to be around January 1st, somewhere between January 1st to January 15th and so on. To make it even more confusing, there are different types of early applications. There's early decision, there's early action, and there's something called restrictive early action, just to keep it really complicated. So the big difference is between early action and early decision. Early action means you apply early, and if you get in, then alhamdulillah, you're free to go. But you're also able to apply to all the other schools on your list at the regular deadline and so on. Early decision, on the other hand, is a binding agreement. You're saying, if I am you are my top choice school, and if I am accepted, I pledge that I will attend your school. Right? It's like a covenant. It's you're promising that if I get in, then I'm going to attend. Right? This is a very, very powerful weapon you have. Right? If so applying early decision is a huge decision that I'm sure a lot of you guys, the seniors, are wrestling with right now, whether you should apply early and early ED and where, or whether you shouldn't. So that's a huge decision, and one of the big reasons is that there are financial implications, right? If you apply ED and you get in, then you're bound to go there. They will meet whatever financial need they said that they would meet, and you can estimate what that is by filling in something called the net price calculator. So before you apply ED anywhere, right, you should fill in this thing called the net price calculator. You can Google net price calculator, name of your school, and you'll quickly find it. You have to enter some information from your taxes and other things, and you'll see what they will expect you to pay. Right? So this is, again, something that I highly recommend that you get expert advice on, because a lot of people waste their early application by applying to a school that's not a reach school, but it's like a an impossible dream type school, right? It's it's such a powerful weapon, and you only can use it really once or twice technically with ED2. But so you want to be smart and strategic with that decision. And there are a lot of reasons that you might consider not applying early decision. Maybe you only want to apply early action, right? Maybe you don't want to apply early at all, right? If you've had a somewhat of a up and down career, and you really want colleges to see your full fall grades for your senior year, if you're still working on your testing and you don't you're still taking the SAT and other things like that, then there may be reasons not to apply. But for those of you who are applying early to some of your top choice schools, if you're applying ED, I would highly recommend getting all of your applying to all of your safeties as well, applying to all the schools that you're likely to get into. Apply to those early as well. It's nice to have those acceptances come in, so you for sake of mine. And there's also more scholarship money. There tends to be early on in the whole cycle. These are some interesting figures. So this shows you the early decision rate, and then the regular decision rate. You'll see at some schools it's pretty crazy. So at Tulane in particular, 68% of students who apply ED are accepted. Only 2.5% of students who apply regular are accepted. That's a 27-time difference, right? So Tulane is very much an outlier in that. But Northeastern, which is a school that a lot of my students have gone, look at there. It's almost 40% acceptance rate if you apply ED, and a 4.3 acceptance rate, right? So a 9-time difference between applying ED and regular decision, right? Same thing, Columbia, 15% down to 2.8%, right? So this decision is a really, really big one. Nothing can improve your chances of getting in more than applying ED. But applying ED to the wrong school applying ED to a school, either that you probably would have gotten in no matter what, or to a school that where your chances of admission were extremely low, or a school that you really can't afford based on what the net price calculator is telling you. Those are all big mistakes. But you can see all these schools have between 4 or 5 times acceptance rates for applying early. And then the other thing that you can see is how much of their class, right? Tulane's filling 64% of their class with ED1 and ED2, right? Northeastern, they say 52%. I feel like it's probably even more than that based on anecdotal evidence, right? But schools are filling more than 50% of their class through this ED round, right? Which is why not applying early, if you do have the stats, if you are ready, can again be a pretty big mistake. Okay. And then the last part in this first section, adopt a stepping stone mindset. So graduation is called commencement, right? So in other words, what the mistake that a lot of people make is they put the colleges on a pedestal, right? Everything they've done in high school is about getting into college. Will this look good for college and so on? And their application smells like that, right? It's like the colleges feel like you are contorting yourself to try to make yourself look good for them. They don't see authenticity. They see someone who's just trying to impress them. Whereas the reality is the ceremony at the end of college is called commencement. It's called the beginning, right? College is not the end goal, right? Unless you want to be a professor for the rest of your life, you are not trying to get into a college forever. You're trying to get into a college to use it as a stepping stone on your path towards changing the world, right? So your college application really needs to focus on you and the value that you bring to the campus, right? Don't sell yourself short, right? The colleges that accept you, they really want you, right? They want you to come and join their campus, right? And in order to show them why they should want you, you need to have that that confidence that you are bringing something important to the table. You want to have this future focused mindset, right? You want to be someone who's not just thinking about the next 4 years, not just thinking about where they want to go to college, but that you've painted a compelling vision to the colleges that you are a person who is going places. You're going to get there with them or without them, but they might as well give you acceptance so that they can benefit from you and the future things that you do. And maybe you'll give some money back to the college after you become successful, right? Colleges are businesses. Colleges want to have successful graduates, right? If you convince them that you are someone who is going places, who's doing things in this world, they are going to fight to get you onto their campus, right? Colleges have admissions officers have a term for applications or applicants who, are putting them on a pedestal and doing everything. They call them sweaty, right? People they say, oh, we got another sweaty one, right? That the person's just like running around trying to just impress the college. This is not what we want, right? We do not want to come across as sweaty. All right, so let's just take a little break. We'll meet one of my students, Inji. So Hamza, Inji just graduated from Brown. Alhamdulillah. This is what she had to say. It's rare to find a mentor so deeply invested in the success and happiness of their students. Brother Hamza not only spent the time to get to know every one of his students on a personal level, but he's also incredibly knowledgeable about how to use that information to their benefit. During the beginning of my college application process, Brother Hamza set me up with a strong foundation, pushing me to reflect on experiences that shaped me. Alhamdulillah, Inji's been very successful. He went to Brown and has had a very, very successful career, alhamdulillah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect her. All right, let's talk about the core of the application itself. So the application has a few different sections. One of them is the activities list. So the activities list is the place where you get to talk about your extracurriculars. One of the most important things you can do before you click submit, right, is make sure that you've done a good job on your activities list. This is where I see applications fall apart for so many students. they don't know, they haven't been given the proper guidance. They don't know how important it is to describe their activities in a particular kind of way. So compare these two things. The before for this activity is managed school's hot lunch program every day. Okay, doesn't tell us very much. Okay, after doing some thinking about what they did, the problems they solved, the lessons they learned, the impact they had, how they applied it, right? The why behind what they did. It becomes created hot lunch program after facing discipline for ordering food, served 35% of student body, raised $10,000 plus, established vendor partnerships and digital payments. So this student, in less than 150 characters, because that's all you got, put a story in there. He actually created some, a thought in our minds. Created hot lunch program after facing discipline for ordering food. I wonder what that's all about, right? Some of their values, the reason for doing it came through. There are numbers. Raised $10,000, 35 helped feed 35% of the student body every single day, right? This takes what was a fairly average thing and turns it into something great. Here's some other examples, right? One person could put they got the journalism award. That's all they describe it as. Or they could say Silver Knight Award for journalism, the Pulitzer Prize for high schoolers, given to one in the entire country, included $2,000 prize. So you can imagine, like, if you don't put the specifics in, if you don't put the details, colleges will never know, right? So someone could have put participated in a variety of sports, including martial arts, boxing, and volleyball. This student, this is actually a real student. He wrote fearsome martial artist, the reason why Waldo's hiding. Organized boxing event, 22 fighters, overcame sports anxiety and Texas heat in varsity volleyball. So this person's talking, this is like one of the last activities. They're trying to get all their like physical, sports in. They had so many other activities, and they managed in 150 characters to put humor in there, the reason why Waldo's hiring, right? Overcame sports anxiety and Texas heat, right? It's there, mashallah, there's just so much personality in this seemingly boring resume list, right? Various debate awards versus turned debate stage into battlefield for justice, winning 4 championships with 19-3 record, used persuasive words to build bridges where others saw walls. Okay, so again, to change your activities list from these boring things at the first to the after one takes some skill. It takes some learning, right? And specifically, one of the things that I teach the students is actually sometimes how to use some AI tools. It's critically important that your essays are written by you, right? That you're that it needs to all be in your own voice. The activities section is a place, however, where, just like many people do with their resumes, where you can actually get some help from AI to to tighten things up. The reality is most people do not know how to use ChatGPT, right? Most people do not know how to use AI. You can't just write a basic little mini prompt and expect it to output something really interesting, right? So this prompt, right, which is one of the things that that's included inside of this Ihsan Emissions Intensive, and a lot more like this, will help people transform their activities list from something very very basic to something much more impressive. So let me see if I can show don't tell. So I'm going to copy and paste this into ChatGPT. Where is ChatGPT? Here we go. So I'm just gonna, while we're waiting for that to come up, I'm gonna look in the chat. Is putting humor in there something good, or is it meant to be formal? Humor, I mean, you should reflect your own personality. If humor is a big part of your personality, then it's definitely a good thing. MashaAllah, I love seeing all these exclamation points. I'm sorry I'm not able to follow them. I don't know why the internet is deciding to be so slow while I'm trying to do a webinar. All right, so I'm going to paste that prompt. Oop, I'm going to paste that prompt. Okay, so it's now going to say, please provide details about the activity following the guidance you mentioned. You can tell me about what you did, any problems you solved, and the impact you had, any measurable outcomes, numbers, statistics, etc., why you chose to participate in this activity, any leadership roles or challenges you faced, right? And so at this point, right, this is where you want to where you need to do the work, right? AI is not going to write a great activities list for you. You need to actually do the deep thinking here. And so what I highly recommend that people do is you type out like a stream of conscious paragraph about one of your big activities, right? When people join the boot camp or this Hassan emissions intensive, they fill in this this brag sheet where they talk about their extracurriculars. If you go into their extracurricular uh, brag sheet and you copy and paste one of their big long paragraphs describing an extracurricular, then it's going to output something very, very powerful. If you answer all these questions, right, then it's going to do something very powerful. So one little hack that I do for that is I have the ChatGPT app, right? And on the when you're in the app, you can just click the sort of microphone button, and then you can speak to it, right? And you can just say, you can explain your whole activity, what you did, any problems you solved, the impact you had, any measurable outcomes, why you chose to participate in this activity, right? So for the sake of time, I don't know that I, without speaking, hold on, let me, I have an idea. I'll try to make up an activity. Sorry, my phone is not cooperating. Okay, so I'll just put something in here. Let's see. Founded model UN. All right. Sorry, I just had to come up with something really quickly. Founded Model UN chapter at school where students were apathetic about politics, right? And now it's going to spit out some things. I have no idea how good these will be. As you see, I was doing that fresh. So founded Model UN chapter, raised $5,000 for conferences, recognized as best delegate, led most popular club, igniting passion. Established thriving Model UN, raised $5,000. It's okay. Founded school's most popular club. That's a good way to start. Sparked political activism and peers. Also good. and so on. So the point is, sorry, that was a very, very short thing. Your actual paragraph should be way longer than this, and you'll get much better results. But the reality is that you can use some of these tools in ethical ways to, to make a really big difference. Okay. Going back into this, because I know we need to keep on moving. So show your why, don't tell your what. Okay. Show your why, don't tell your what. So when you're writing the personal statement itself, the college essay, probably the single most important part of this whole process, right? Make sure that you are showing, not telling, and you're showing the why, the reason behind it, and not telling what you did, right? The activities list, even in the activities list, you're trying to insert some of your personality and your character and so on. But here, especially, you're supposed to be showing, not telling. So no one can compete with you in being you, right? So just try your to be yourself. You can't compete with commodities. Okay, so it is impossible. Like every year, people with perfect GPAs and 1580, 1590, 1600 SAT scores, they do not get into every single college that they apply to. There are lots of colleges where they won't get acceptance. It's not enough. You can't compete with other people on those sorts of things. You need to stand out by being one of a kind, right? And you are one of a kind. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made you as one of a kind, right? So one rule of thumb, if you think I probably shouldn't write about this, if you're worried to write about it, right, because you're taking a risk or you're afraid what other people might think, then that's a pretty good sign that that's a good essay topic that you have in mind. It's certainly something that you might want to explore, right? If you take the easy route, the expected route, the common route, right, then no one's really going to be impressed. Instead of saying something was terrible, describe it in a way that makes us feel terrified. Okay, basic writing. Tell us true stories that reveal both vulnerability and confidence. Okay, so you want to strike this balance. You want to show vulnerability, that you haven't figured out everything about the world, that you're still a work in progress, but also confidence, that you believe that you're going to figure it out and that you have dreams and you have visions. Okay, so it's a difficult balance to strike, but when done well, it comes across really well. Okay, so personal branding. I want to study X to become Y while working on Z. Okay, I want to study X, right? Your major to become Y, probably a profession of some sort, while working on Z, while solving a particular problem, right? If you come up with a good Z, right, then the rest of it sort of starts to take care of itself. Okay, celebrate your Twin Peaks. Oftentimes, people feel compelled to either be a STEM person or a humanities person. But the reality is that many of the best students are passionate about many different things. That's okay. Although ideally, I would say really go deep on, two things, ideally things that are different from one another. Right? So just like Imam Ghazali did, you want to become an expert in multiple things, be a polymath. Right? So you can be an expert in both computer science and in classical Greek, right? Find these different mergers of your interests, right, that seem unusual, and go for them. And focus on the why over the what. So colleges want to know your niyyah, right? So, right, when people come to me and they tell me they want to be a doctor, sometimes they have a story that is so convincing that I'm like, wow, of course you want to be a doctor. No wonder, right? The doctor saved their sister's eyesight or something like that, and they've always wanted to do something like that, right? If there's a story behind why you want to do what you do, then tell that story. And if there isn't, then dig deeper within yourself to find that story, because it definitely exists. There's a reason why we love to do the things we love, and it requires some digging to figure it out. What to avoid: trying to sound deep and profound, right? Truth with a capital T. So, blowing the trumpets of triumph. So trying to sound like you have it all figured out, and I was lost, but now I'm found, and all this stuff. Instead, just look in these small moments in your life, hold them under a microscope, right? And take the microcosm and paint the picture of the macrocosm. So a lot of the best essays are about seemingly small, mundane things that actually end up revealing a lot about personality. And this requires a lot of, brainstorming work and other things like that. Okay, the standout scale. So this is a good way to test if you've written a college essay, to get a sense of whether you're on the right track, right? So essentially try to give yourself a score from 1 to 4 in terms of your topic, your connections, the insights that you're making about your topic, and the language that you're using, the how you're writing about it, right? So on a scale of 1 to 4, so from very common to very uncommon, right? So if you choose a topic that is fairly common, right, that a lot of people have done before, then your connections, the insights that you have are going to have to be uncommon. So if you do like the sports injury essay, which I recommend you don't do, or if you do like the the death of a grandparent or the trip essay or something like that, right? Those essays have been done very, very, very many times before, right? And it's very hard to have your essay stand out. But if you do choose a topic that's fairly common, make sure that the way you talk about it is uncommon, the insights that you have, right? You do not want to have a predictable college essay. You want to keep people guessing. You want to keep people on their toes, right? You want, like, the best case scenario, the reader says, "Wow, I've never thought of it quite like that." Right? That you've added something new, that you've helped stand out from the pack in that way. Okay. Let's see, what time is it? 8:45. Okay, let's try this. So I want you to make a list. This is something which you can actually write. This is a little workshop action. So make a list of 3 details from your life. Interesting small facts that describe some small random part of who you are. And try to include some that are connected to your Muslim identity. Okay, so I want you to I'm gonna put a timer for 3 minutes. Okay, try to come up with 3 details from your life. You can maybe do more than 3 in 3 minutes, right? So for me, the examples that I came up with, and these are all true stories. I once had to recite Quran to Israeli soldiers to prove that I was a Muslim to pray Fajr at Masjid al-Aqsa. Right, so I went to Fajr to pray Fajr there. They stopped me. My name was not, I didn't have a Muslim name on my passport. They forced me to recite Quran to prove my Islam. Every morning I go for the same 10-minute walk on the bike path reciting the morning adhkar. I secretly love dogs, even though keeping them as pets is frowned on in the Muslim community. Okay, so that one's sort of interesting, showing something about myself. Okay, so let's see this 3 details. So I want you to come up with 3 details. And once you've come up with your top one, I want you to paste that into the chat. And after 3 minutes, I'm going to have you hit return, and then we're going to see all these details that we have in our audience. Okay? So 3 minutes, and then paste your favorite detail that you come up with and put it in the chat. Oh, I didn't realize you guys couldn't see the chat GPT that I showed. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. One more minute. So you should be finishing up. I want you to copy and paste the small detail into the chat. So copy and paste the small detail into the chat, and in 5 seconds, I'm going to have you hit return. So 3, 2, 1, hit return, and let's see what we came up with. Every morning I recite Surah Yasin. I recite Surah Yasin. I'm making a book about historical electrical engineering that no one knows about, and Google says otherwise. Interesting. Want to know more. Although I do not love the language, I love watching foreign language films. I love travel. What I always do, use the GPS and go on abnormal routes so we can experience different paths. So cool. Like the way you go for Eid in different ways. Plan class schedule based on prayer times, especially Jummah. Cool. My life is ordinary and I can't think of anything. You have to dig deeper than that. I was born a Muslim, but I didn't find Islam until recently. Ooh, that could be a really interesting essay topic. I was one of the very first 2 students who attended a new online school. I went to the masjid every day for a full year to do online school. Okay. Is it humanly possible to have nothing? I was cast out from Muslim scouting. Ooh, there's a story. I had a hard time memorizing the Quran. Can we mention being a Hafiz? Sure, definitely. I was once mistaken for my brother's mother by multiple people despite our 3-year age gap, just because of a pair of knitting needles. Okay, there's definitely a story there. I'm on a quest to finish all of Agatha Christie's mystery novels. Great first line for a college essay. One of my hobbies is skateboarding, and I sometimes would skate to school in a jilbab. Great picture. I can totally see it. Most of my friends are skater boys and girls, and it's always a shock to see hijabi skating on the street with a bunch of white kids. So cool. Really great image. I'm a social person that can make friends pretty quickly. I'm an overthinker, a perfectionist, an overachiever, but overall I am okay. Nice. When I was in Egypt for vacation, so many people told me there's no way I was an Egyptian, although I was. Interesting. I put on a niqab on a random Tuesday in 10th grade. Huh. That's really interesting. Going to Islamic school in a Western country, traveling around my home country, which is 99% Muslim. I used to read Quran alone in the masjid, and I got scared whenever I heard a small noise or saw the lights flickering because I thought it was due to jinn. Yeah, I've had that experience actually myself. I've been to more rallies for Palestine than anyone in my school, mashallah. Trying to make reading Quran a habit every day for 10 minutes. I start, goes on for about 10 days, and then I fail. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy. I was walking to the store and saw a homeless family outside. I was planning on giving them the remaining change I have once I'm out of the store, but when I was out, they were nowhere to be seen. In 5th grade, I made the school make us a prayer room. Great story. One time I was in a canoe in the ocean with my little sister and we got swept away by a current. It took us 40 minutes to paddle back. I have to stop for the sake of not keeping us here all night. But you can see those little details, those stories, right? Those little sparks, right? There's so much there. I don't know most of the people here in this crowd, but you just told me a little thing that caused some curiosity, right? So there are a lot of brainstorming exercises like this that can get your creative juices flowing, right? And you have this opportunity on your college essay to really show so much of your personality. Okay, so you can definitely incorporate Islam into your essay. You don't have to. It's not like a must, but for many people in this audience, so many of you are saying your favorite book is the Quran or other things like that, right? How can you talk about yourself without mentioning your Islamic personality? But don't talk about it so directly, like, try to find like a side door to talk about it. إن الله لا يغير ما بقوم حتى يغيروا ما بأنفسهم. You could write a whole extracurricular essay about that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not change a people until they change what's inside themselves. The tie your camel hadith, right? Your favorite Sahaba, right? My favorite Sahaba is Mus'ab bin Umair radiallahu anh. Your favorite Sunnah, right? Right? I do everything in odd numbers, right? That 5 before 5, I set my alarm for 5:31 a.m., not 5:30 a.m., right? Inna Allaha witr yuhibbul witr, right? So there are lots of, Islam is such a beautiful tradition. So try to pick something a little bit out of the ordinary within our tradition that has had a big influence on you, and talk about it if you want. Like those are some of the ways that you can do that. All right, here is just one other download if people are interested. I myself, a few years ago, I wrote 30 college essays in 30 days. So I don't just teach college essays, I've written them myself. I wanted to prove to my students that I was capable of doing it, so I set a crazy challenge. I also wanted to prove to them that it's not as overwhelming as they make it think. So 1 November, every day for the whole month of November, I wrote a college essay. It was a lot of work, but Hamza, I learned so much, and these college essays can be an incredible way of revealing about yourself. So even if you're sitting there thinking you haven't started, you're lost, or you don't know what to do, there's plenty of time to write a great essay. All right, then knock your supplements out of the park. Right, so supplements are college-specific questions at specific colleges, and these are really important things for the highly selective schools. They help them figure out things like the diversity of their incoming class, especially after the Supreme Court ruling. They help them figure your fit within their community, and a bunch of other things like that. So when you're applying to lots of schools, right? So a lot of people put many schools. So this is 10 schools. I chose 10 very competitive schools. Look at the number of supplements that these schools have, right? So overall, if you applied to these 10 schools, you would have 55 supplements to write and over 12,000 words of writing to do. That is a tremendous amount. That is why, applying to college is pretty, is a big commitment. Now, the reality is most of these schools have early decision or something called restrictive early action. So you can't apply to all of them at this early deadline. So most likely you're focusing in on one of these schools for now. But the rest of them are going to come up at the regular deadline. If you wait until the week before the regular deadline, you are going to be completely swamped. Okay, I don't think I was right. Even in my 30 college essays in 30 days, I wasn't writing 12,000 words, right, in a week. That's a tremendous amount to do, especially of high stakes writing like this. So the supplements, there are solutions, right? There's something called the super essay, right, where you take a list of all the different supplements for all the schools on your list, right, and you create a Venn diagram, and sometimes there will be a question like, describe a community you belong to and your place within it. Tell us something that is meaningful to you and why, and share a perspective you bring or experiences you've had to help us understand you better. So those are 3 different supplements at 3 different schools. It's possible to find an essay that's going to work for each of them. Now, it might be a 500-word essay in one place and a 350-word essay in another place, but still, by being strategic, you can write these super essays that work for that. I'm going to skip the super essay for the sake of time. And I'm also going to skip this video. This is Safwan. I'll play like 5 seconds of it.
Assalamu alaikum, fellow Muslims, high school senior, or anybody who's looking to apply to college. I cannot recommend Mr. Henshaw enough. My name is Safwan, and I am one of Mr. Henshaw's students. And just to be clear, this is an honest review.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum, fellow Muslims.
He says some nice things there, but unfortunately we have limited time. All right, so revision and proofreading tools. This is the last section before I tell you a little bit about this Ihsan Admissions Intensive. So when you finally are almost done, right, when you really are thinking about clicking submit, what you should do is you create an almost done document, right? So you put in one document your entire application. So your activities list, your personal statement, additional info section, which we didn't talk about much here, your supplements, right? You put them all in one document, right? Then I would recommend changing the font, right? Changing the font and the font size, right? Because you're used to looking at it one way, you're trying to look at it from a different way, and printing the whole thing out. Then read it out loud. The single best way to proofread is to read things out loud. Okay, when I was in college, when I would write an essay, I would actually call my mom, who was an English teacher, on the phone, and I would read my essays out loud to her. And she actually enjoyed this for some reason. Most people don't, but she enjoyed it when and that was the way that I caught my writing and tried to make my writing sound right. So read it out loud. Complete a values scan. Okay, so you should have certain values and there's a whole values exercise that I can help people do. Read over your essay and see which values are actually coming through, right? Which values in my personal statement, in my supplements are coming through, which could be made clearer, which of the values could be clearer, and then which of the core values is missing. Is there some major part of me that didn't make it into this, right? Sometimes you don't notice it when you're in the middle of it, but when you take a step back and you print the whole thing out, then you can notice it. And then maybe, where do I keep on mentioning the same value many different times? Like, I'm a hard worker, and then you later say, I work really hard. And, one of the most amazing things about me is the intensity with which I complete my work, right? Like, you keep saying the same thing, like the same value. Okay, we get it. You've proved that, but you wasted the space to actually talk about two other really important things for you by keeping being redundant. What do you want to do while proofreading? So this is something that they talk about for writers. They talk about killing your darlings. Okay, what it really means to kill your darlings, and why every writer should do it. So a lot of times when we're writing, especially something like the college essay, we fall in love with certain lines that we've written, right? And it happens to me as well. I'll create a slide deck like this, and it's so hard for me to click the delete button, right? It's so hard to get rid of it. But to be a good writer, you need to be able to, even when you've slaved over something and you've worked so hard to create it, you need to be able to kill your darlings. You need to be able to hit delete. What I do is I copy and paste it and put it into a separate document, right? That way it takes the the sting out of it, even though I very rarely ever look at that other document. But that allows me to be ruthless in my proofreading. So avoid overwriting. So if you read something like, my unbridled affect for animals emerged back when I was still basking in the innocence of my youth, right? Get rid of it immediately. And instead say something like, I got my first pet when I was 10. It was a tadpole, right? Instead of saying, the pungent scent of moisture-laden clods of earth entered my unwavering nostrils, you say, I smelled mud, right? I can't tell you, for some reason, college essays bring out that top line, right? And people who write with ChatGPT sometimes sound like that top line. They take something which they should be able to say really, really simply and say it in this big, flowery, ornate, like, garbage kind of way, right? Keep it simple. Keep it direct, right? You don't need to, there may be times for you to flex your writing muscles, right? But it's not in the flowery ornateness of using a bunch of big adjectives and so on. Try to keep it grounded. Vary your sentence length, right? This is a really cool exercise. This sentence has 5 words. Here are 5 more words. 5-word sentences are fine, but several together become monotonous. Listen to what is happening. The writing is getting boring. The sound of it drones. It's like a stuck record. The ear demands some variety. Now listen. I vary the sentence length, and I create music. Music. The writing sings. It has a pleasant rhythm, a lilt, a harmony. I use short sentences, and I use sentences of medium length. And sometimes, when I am certain the reader is rested, I will engage him with a sentence of considerable length, a sentence that burns with energy and builds with all the impetus of a crescendo, the roll of the drums, the crash of the cymbals, sounds that say, listen to this, it is important. So write with a combination of short, medium, and long sentences. Create a sound that pleases the reader's ear. Don't just write words, write music. Okay. So this is really high-level writing advice about varying your sentence length. And again, sometimes you don't think about that until you read it all out and you see the whole thing together and you realize, whoa, every single sentence is I'm starting them subject, verb, object, and all this kind of stuff. This is why you definitely want to have someone helping you with the writing who really knows their stuff. More questions that you can ask yourself to make sure you're on the right track when you're doing this almost done test. The staircase test, right? So imagine that your college counselor, your English teacher was walking up with all the entire classes, college applications, college essays, and they fell on the stairs and they floated up in the air and they all got mixed up. Okay, they should be able to pick up each of those pieces of papers and without seeing a name on the top of the paper, know exactly who wrote it. Because no one should be able to write your college essay except for you. If your college essay could have been written by someone else, if the insights are not specific to you, if the stories that they're telling are not vulnerable stories of you sharing something that's deeply meaningful to yourself, right, then you have missed the mark. Right? And you need to really start over. Read it out loud, as I said before. You can never turn something in that you haven't read out loud. That's how you find the music in your writing. Does it scare you to share it with others? Right? If the answer is no, then you might not be onto something. Right? If the answer is yes, then there's a good chance that you've taken a risk and that you've shown some level of vulnerability. Right? A good essay teaches your teacher something new about you. A great essay teaches your parents something they didn't know about you. So eliminate any of these vague references, life-changing events and so on. Tell us, show us what happened. Show us the change, the life change. Don't tell us about it, right? But also be careful about getting too much advice on your college essays. As it says, too many cooks spoil the biryani, right? If you if you get too much advice on something, then sometimes it can lose its potency, right? So sometimes people ask me for advice, but I tell them, listen, you ask me for my opinion, I will share my opinion, but it is your essay and you need to make the final call, right? So different people will see things differently and will give you different advice. At the end of the day, you are the captain of the ship. You decide what goes in there, but be careful about asking too many people. If you try to write an essay that pleases everyone, you'll end up pleasing no one. And putting on the finishing touches. How do you know when you're done? Moving from good to great, right? So how you actually can use ChatGPT. Okay, so as I said, you cannot use ChatGPT to write your essay for you. It will sound like one of those flowery things, right? However, once you've written an essay, you can get some helpful feedback from ChatGPT. So read over this college essay and let me know if there are any holes in the story. Are there any blind spots I might not be seeing? If I could only keep 20% of this, what would it be and why? After reading this essay, what do you think my top values are and why? Okay, we just said to do the value scan. This is a way of asking it to do the value scan, right? Imagine you are an overworked admissions officer who has to read 50 college essays a day. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much does this one stand out and why? Okay, again, don't take this as the gospel truth. Remember how these AI programs work. This is not, this is artificial intelligence. It can output nonsense, right? But at the same time, you can get some really interesting feedback. Just be very, very careful not to let it do the actual writing for you. And there are other AI tools, like Hemingway is a really cool one. Hemingway, you can copy and paste things, and it will, help you know whether you're writing like Hemingway. Hemingway is known for writing really simple sentences, very direct to the point. And a lot of us have a tendency to be very flowery and ornate, and Hemingway can really help you do that, and Claude's another really great AI for that. This is a great college essay checklist, right? That you can use when deciding whether you're done. Does it show your core values? Right? Are 4 or 5 of the core values and not repetitive ones, not hard work, determination, and perseverance. That's one value, not 4 to 5 separate ones. Vulnerability, does it sound like it was written from the heart and the gut and not just the head, right? The essay took a chance. It made us feel closer. Does it have so what moments, right? Does it have things that have interesting insights that are illuminating and not predictable, things that we didn't necessarily see coming. And craft, does it connect ideas in a way that's logical but not obvious or boring, right? That it's clearly been through many, many different drafts, right? People do not write their college essays in one draft. Many people have written, 10, 15, 20 drafts. What I recommend before you write 15 drafts of an essay is make sure you're on the right idea. I always tell people to do 0 drafts before, which is just getting ideas down before selecting a direction to go and really start to develop. Because otherwise you have the sunk cost fallacy where you put so much effort into an essay that you're afraid to make any big changes. And finally, make istikhara when submitting, right? When you're submitting your college essay, use what Islam has taught us. You say, Allahumma inni astakhiruka bi'ilmika wa astaqdiruka biqudratika wa as'aluka min fadlika al-azim fa innaka taqdiru wa la aqdiru wa ta'lamu wa la a'lamu anta allamul ghuyub. Okay, so we're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from your knowledge and your power and your blessings, and you are capable and I am not. You know and I do not know. And then you're asking, oh Allah, if you know that this task, going to this particular college, is good for me, for my religion, my subsistence, and my hereafter, right? If this is good for me, both here and there, essentially, if it is good for me both in dunya and akhirah, faqdirhu li. Make it true, make it part of my rizq. فَقْدِرْهُ لِي وَيَسِرْهُ لِي, and make it easy for me. ثُمَّ بَارِكْ لِي فِي, then put barakah in it. وَإِن كُنْتَ تَعْلَمْ أَنَّ هَذَا الْأَمْرَ شَرًّا لِي, and if you know that this matter is bad for me, في ديني وَدُنْيَايَ, in my deen or in my worldly life, فَاصْرِفْهُ عَنِّي وَاصْرِفْنِي عَنْهُ, keep it away from me and keep me away from it. ثُمَّ أَهْدِيَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ حَيْثُ كَانَ وَبَارِكْ لِي فِي. Right? This is the beautiful words. This is why Islam is such a powerful weapon. Right? If we make this dua, we're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if it's bad for us, then keep it away from us. Keep it away from us and direct us to whatever is good for us. If we have this istikhara mindset as we're submitting our applications, then nothing can go wrong. Right? Nothing can go wrong when you put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that the ultimate decision is the decision of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not the decision of this admissions committee, right? And when we do this, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put barakah in whatever decision ends up getting made. Right? So this is one of the most important things that I'll say. Okay, finally, this is one last little testimonial. Dina, when I first met Brother Hamza, I was in the 8th grade. He treated me like I wasn't a child, even though I was, and technically still am. He received all my ridiculousness with appreciation and understanding. He showed me that someone like me could live an interesting, fulfilled life. Up until becoming his students, I felt like an outlier for whom there was no place in the normal world, but in fact, there was a place for people like me, his classroom. And Dina was one of the mentors in our boot camp this summer. All right, so now, with your permission, I want to introduce this program. I saw some questions in the chat about, are you still helping with college essays and things? We've come up with this program, and what we're talking about today is aimed specifically at seniors who are going through the college process right now. So this is the Ihsan Admissions Intensive. Right? So who is this program for? So this is for ambitious Muslim seniors who want expert guidance on their college applications, right? So right now, this particular program is aimed at seniors, right? These are people who are currently applying to college. And I know there are a lot of non-seniors in our audience. We absolutely will have programs for you coming up very soon, inshallah. But this particular one, we're trying to solve the bleeding neck problem that is that we have a bunch of applications to get done over the next 3 months, and we're feeling overwhelmed, right? So who is it for? Students who know that they need the accountability of deadlines to get their best work done, right? So like I said, many people, they wait until the last second, they wait until that November 1st deadline before they can finally sit down and get their work done. By spreading this work out and having intermediate deadlines all along and having accountability, this can be very helpful. And families who want to make sure that they're giving their children the best possible chance to succeed. Right? Why do we need these deadlines, right? Because it's Parkinson's law, right? If you give yourself until November 1st to get your application done. It's going to take you until November 1st to get your application done. And this dark cloud is going to be hanging over you the whole time until you finally sit down and do it. Whereas if you're told by by me or by someone else that I want to draft this essay by this time next week, right? Then suddenly you have a much more, you're going to take advantage of this Parkinson's law. You're going to have to get that thing done ahead of time. So when does this program happen? So Ihsan Admissions Intensive runs for 3 months from October to December, but as soon as people sign up, they start the initial work. The program officially begins on October 1st, but we will begin before that for people who sign up earlier. It will be easy for us to get the first meetings in and so on. But this is a program that's aimed at, it says October to December, but it's during the admission season. So it may go into January a little bit, but it's until the end of college admission season, which is usually around January 15th for most of the competitive schools at the latest. What is included in this, or why you should do that? So you'll understand how college admissions officers think and why they are looking for Muslim candidates just like you. You'll learn how to tell your unique story in a way that transforms your application readers from gatekeepers to advocates. You'll produce college applications that pop off the page. You'll slay your procrastination by having external accountability and deadlines. And you'll be able to sleep well knowing that you have tied your camel, right? That you have taken the asbab, taken the means by investing in yourself and investing in your child ability to do this well. Why I love what I do. These are just the sorts of texts that I get. Inshallah, I'll get from many of you in the future. Salam, Brother Hamza. I got a full ride to the University of Notre Dame through Questbridge. Thank you for your assistance in the past months. Assalamu alaikum, Hamza. With Allah's blessing and the support and guidance of many wonderful people like you, this girl's been accepted into UPenn, mashallah. This summer, Brother Hamza met with my sister-in-law Hikmat. Her anxiety was through the roof. Hamza, she's received acceptance letters from UT, Austin Tufts, Northwestern Columbia, and more. And Hamza Hikmat was also one of our mentors who I later hired. She did such an amazing job this summer. Alhamdulillah. So how does this whole program work? One of the core things, obviously, is one-on-one coaching from me. This is really the only way to get direct access to me and help from me with the college applications is in the context of this program. So we'll meet to finalize your college list, your application strategy, personal branding, scholarship strategies, right? So to look over your whole essays. Then, in addition to that, we do have those meetings, but I have limited time and so on. What we have is we have office hours every week. We're going to set aside a time, like a 90-minute time for these group coaching calls. For you to get any of your questions answered, right? So if you don't have a meeting with me, you can come and ask your question and get it answered. And also, during those office hours, you may have remembered from the College Essay Bootcamp video I showed earlier that a lot of people talked about the office hours and the mentorship that they got there as being the highlight. So I tried to really design that as a central feature of this Ihsan Admissions Intensive, that we will have mentors in breakout rooms to work with you one-on-one on your essays as you're developing them. And then also you can get written feedback on your essays. So every week you can turn in an essay or a supplement or something else that you're working on and get written feedback on it. And then this is a premium add-on, but something that I highly recommend. is adding actual essay mentorship, right? So if you decide to add that on, then you would get 12 meetings. So essentially every single week for the rest of the admission season, you'd be meeting with one of these superstar mentors, like the ones we used in the College Essay Bootcamp this summer, to really get in the trenches and help you, with your essays. Of course, you get some of that help with the basic with the core package, but this is an added extra support for that. What else? There are parent workshops. Focused on financial aid, scholarships, preserving Islamic identity in college, how to support your child. So there's stuff for the parents. Parents are also welcome to come to any of the office hours with their questions. We have more than 25 hours of recorded content. So that whole College Essay Bootcamp, which consisted of more than 15 workshops, are recorded there. Any of the other stuff that we teach over the course of this will go into an online portal. We'll do more of those ChatGPT prompts, sort of like the one I showed you earlier, although I guess it wasn't really showing that well. And then there's also an opportunity to have an add-on for college decision support. So this program is really this 3-month program going, through the end of application season, right? But if you want extra support, like once all the decisions come out and you're trying to make your final decision, that's something that you can also add on. So what is the outcome, inshallah? Polished applications to all your colleges without the anxiety and stress of doing it all on your own, right? So that you'll know that, Hamza, you put your best foot forward, that you sought out expert help and assistance and so on. But there's more, alhamdulillah. So one of the bonuses is this is Brother Ali's application guide. Last year when he was applying to college, he really went above and beyond. He reached out to over 100 Harvard, Stanford, and other top students and interviewed them and collected his notes and collected their essays and so on. And now he's put it all together in one big guide. And this is something that you get access to within the program, that that you can see this more than 244 essays and so on. And this is something really powerful. You'll also get this 5 Muslim college essays that worked, is a compilation of essays that I put together, written by some of my former students and other Muslim students. And there's a mini course where I break down what those work. So enrollment for this is, we opened it a week ago or so through our email list. This is the first time we're sort of publicly announcing it on the webinar. But we are going to close the enrollment on October 1st. The program officially starts then, and we want to finish the enrollment there so that we can give people our full attention and so on. It's possible that we'll open it again maybe after the early application cycle, but it's quite possible that we won't. That we'll just stick with the numbers that we have. And we're also only accepting a relatively small cohort, right? My own time is fairly limited, and so we can't accept huge numbers of students. So we're trying to keep the numbers small so that you can get the individualized attention that you really want and deserve. So why should you make this investment? You want to prepare your child, obviously, for success in this world and the next. You want to access scholarships and grants that could save your family more than $100,000. Right? You want to unlock these top tier college acceptances that will increase their earning potential, right? And then receive one-on-one guidance that the system, like with your overworked public school guidance counselor, simply can't provide. That many Muslim parents, despite their best intentions, don't have all this insider knowledge that's taken me 20 years to develop. And and like I said, and saving, you usually save a lot more money in the long run than you would spend. Here, what is the investment? So there are 2 options. There's either a one-time payment, which you can see is $3,500, or 4 installments of $1,000. But because you attended the webinar, we're actually putting an early bird discount of $500. So that would change these prices to $3,000 or 4 installments of $1,000. The first installment would be only $500. So you can get started today for $500 with this, and then have the other installments coming down the path. And Hamza, I think that you get pretty significant value for something which I know is an investment, but I think alhamdulillah, I'm very confident that we're providing far more value than that. So you can purchase this here. This is the checkout page. Let me just copy and paste this into the chat. And there's a checkout page. There is a discount code, live webinar, right? Live webinar is the discount code. So if you go to this checkout page, let me just actually show you. So I guess it won't actually show you everything, but when you fill in all your information, I guess I sort of have. I don't really want to put my credit card on for the world to see, but when you click this summary, that's where you can enter the coupon, right? So then I think you have to have entered your information before you can actually type here. That's where you enter live webinar, one word, live webinar, and that will either remove $500 off of this and make it $3,000, or it will remove $500 from the first of the 4 payments and make it $500, and so on. And then the opportunity for the premium mentorship you'll see on the next page if if you go through this process first. Okay, and finally, oh wait, you're probably not able to see, right? Because that's what happened last time. This is what I was just showing you. You click down here, you click on summary. I hope that came through before when I mentioned it, and that's where you put live webinar down here where it says enter coupon. And finally, if you still have questions and you're not and you want to just make sure that this is the right thing for you, I've already had quite a few of these calls with people. There is a way to do that. So I'm going to post that link here as well. That is a way to book a call with me to talk about your specific situation, and to see whether this Ihsan admissions intensive is right for you. So with that said, I'm just going to leave that up. I'm going to head into the questions. Jazakallah khair, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to go into the Q&A portion, not the other one. And I'm going to go from the bottom up because I know these people are still here. Any comment on third-party scholarships? How beneficial are they? Alhamdulillah, third-party scholarships are can be beneficial. There are certain really big ones, the Coca-Cola scholarship, the Gates scholarship, these really big ones, which are nearly full rides. They're extremely competitive. And then there are lots of sort of smaller ones. So one thing you have to look out for is something called scholarship displacement, where if you get a third-party scholarship, this is from like a local charity or something in your neighborhood. Some colleges will replace what you got with financial aid with this scholarship money. So essentially it's a net. There's no big net difference. The big money comes from institutional grants. It comes from schools using merit aid to try to entice you to come to their schools. That's where many of my students have unlocked things like $40,000 a year off of their tuition. That's a huge $120,000 to $150,000 off of the 4-year cost of education. It's very hard to find private scholarships, third-party scholarships to that same level. When do you recommend one begins the application process, Common App and essays? Summer of senior year, too early? No, I would recommend doing it ideally summer of senior year. That's why we did the college essay boot camp at that time. That's definitely a good time to start. Maybe there are people here who are done. I hope that the people who did the boot camp at least got their early application done during that time. But I'm also a realist, and I know that a lot of Muslims, aren't done, and or even if they've started, they're still feeling really stressed. But yes, I do think that summer of senior year is the best time to really work on this. So for all of you juniors and younger people, right, you really want to focus on that, and inshallah, the junior program that we do in the future will definitely help with that. Is the program free? No, unfortunately, the best things in life, or you get what you pay for in life. What I would say on that is if there are significant financial hardships, I do not want to, just like colleges have scholarships and other ways to help you gain access to them if you don't qualify financially. If you're someone who's qualifying for lots of financial aid for scholarships, please reach out to me and we can try to find a solution. I don't want this knowledge to hold you back. At the same time, this is my livelihood. This is how I support myself. This is my full-time business, and I put a lot of my heart and soul in it. And the other thing I'd say is that people who, when you invest in something like this, you tend to get the more benefit from it, right? There's a saying, people who pay attention, right? That when we get something for free or close to free, we don't value it as much as the things which we've actually invested in. And that's been my experience with programs like this. The people who stretch themselves a little bit and make the investment, they're the ones who really benefit, and so on. How long is the course? So it's this is a 3-month, essentially, October through through December, or actually until your college applications are done, right? Which sometimes is a little after January 1st, but essentially it's a 3-month course. At what point in our senior year should we register for the intensive? So this is it closes on October 1st, so now is really the time. So I highly recommend that you either sign up now or book a meeting with me now and sign up before October 1st. How can you write an essay that asks about your family and personal circumstances without making it sound like a typical sob story while still conveying your struggles or hardships? That's definitely a good question. There's a lot to unpack there, and I definitely need to know more of the details. Vulnerability is obviously a big part of the college essay, and the quote unquote sob story, if you want to call it that, is there's a way to write a story that seems inauthentic, where you're talking about something, but if you just focus on what really happened, the real details, how it made you feel, what was going on inside of your head, inside of your heart, and you zero in on specific details or specific memories, right? Then it's going to come across as something very visceral and meaningful, and it's not going to just be sort of a sob story begging for other people's sympathy and so on, right? There should be some sort of so what. There should be some connection to your future goals. It shouldn't just be like, woe is me, I've led such a difficult life, but hopefully it's propelled you in some ways. And a lot of times you need to dig pretty deep and hard to find this kind of stuff. Tazkiya, yes, Tazkiya would be a great concept. I think that's coming from something I asked earlier. 100%. Like there are a lot of Islamic concepts like tawakkul or tazkiyah or something that people don't know. Obviously, you're going to need to define them and make sure to put it in terms that make a lot of sense. But you can absolutely take a beautiful hadith, like how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if you had the tawakkul, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would feed you just like he feeds the birds who, leave the nest hungry. And then, there's that beautiful hadith. So you could go really deeply into that and then talk about where tawakkul showed up in your life and so on. So 100%. Religion is a sensitive topic. Should essays include it? I mean, so you certainly don't have to include, Hamza, I've worked not exclusively, but predominantly with Muslims over the years, and certainly not every single one of them wrote about religion. But for many of them, for them not to write about religion, they would not be telling their full self. There is a way to incorporate religion, and there's a way not to incorporate religion. This should not come across as like a pure dawah piece, like accept Islam, or you're going to Jahannam, like astaghfirullah. That's not the tone you want to strike. You don't want to come across as someone who, is exclusionary in your thinking. You want to be someone who is going to be a part of a vibrant, diverse campus. Admissions officers do tend to skew towards the younger and more liberal side. So you don't want to come across as dogmatic or someone who's just not going to be a part of, add a lot of to campus life. At the same time, it's very much okay to talk about your faith and so on. Like, obviously, it's something that you can and should do, I would argue, but it does need to be done carefully and thoughtfully. What does truth with a capital T mean? That means when you're trying to talk about some like big thing that you've just discovered, like you've discovered the meaning of life, like you come across as like you're 17 years old, you're 18 years old, and you're talking about how you understand something extremely deep about like human psychology or the meaning or purpose of life and so on, and just comes across as sort of pompous and not really the way a 17 or 18-year-old really should be. So you can find truth in the small things in front of you, right? Just don't try to like paint big broad stroke pictures, the theory of all life that you've figured out. Do you recommend that students take the exit exam and skip the last 2 high school years? Yeah, I've met quite a few people lately. I think there are certain parts of the country where that's a more popular path than others. It's not very common here in the Northeast to do that. It really depends on your own goals and what you're trying to do. In general, I would say more competitive colleges are looking for people who've had a pretty full, complete high school experience and are looking for a full, complete college experience, right? In other words, they're not looking for the people doing the speed run through their education. At the same time, sometimes that makes a lot of sense, right? If you can, cut years off of your college by graduating early, by doing a lot of dual enrollment classes, and so on, then that's possible. It is a more difficult path if you are aiming for those top colleges where it's less common. Can you help students applying to BSMD programs? Yes, definitely. I mean, usually applications are fairly similar. There's often some extra essays and so on. And also, if you do work with the premium mentors, I would try to attach you with people with more experience in that kind of in those kinds of programs. But those are, for people who don't know, those are sort of accelerated programs where you are applying both to get your bachelor's and your MD or medical degree at the time. It's sort of like a 7-year accelerated program. They're very, very competitive, and it's it's something that you definitely can try, but I wouldn't put all your eggs in that one basket because there are lots of other paths to medical school other than just that. Is there still time to do 5 before college to prepare for the November 1st of this year? Yes, I know that question came in later. This Ihsan admissions intensive will allow you to do that. Inshallah. How much difference is an SAT super score of 1560 versus a 1560 score in one sitting? I would say almost no difference at all. Very, very few colleges. So just for context, super score is where a college will look at your, let's say one day you got a 780 on math and a 650 on English, and the next time you got a 700 in math and a 720 in English, right? What they'll do is they'll take the top score, the 780, and then the top score from English, the top score from math, and they'll put them together to form a super score. There are a small number of colleges, I think Georgetown is one of them, maybe a couple of others, that only look at, they want all your testing data. They're not really super scoring. The vast majority of colleges do super score, and there's essentially no real difference in their mind whether you got the 1560, which is an amazing score, mashallah, in one sitting, or whether it was the super score of 2 different dates. There, mashallah, the 1560 is going to, be a really good data point for you, either way. Would an essay more focused on your subject that you are going into be more beneficial, or an essay more focused on a hobby that is unrelated to your resume? So that's a really good question. It really it depends, as with everything. You need to see the totality of the application. If there are supplements and other places which might ask you about future plans or extracurriculars that were very deeply meaningful to you, that might give you more latitude in your personal statement to do something, a little bit more unique. But if you're very, very certain of a path that you want to go on, then there's a good chance that might show up at some point in your essay. Your whole essay shouldn't be about that one thing, but that can come through in the sort of conclusion of your essay. So if you had some experience that pushed you to wanting to become, a doctor or a journalist, or whatever career it is, then in the end of the essay it might make sense to share something like that. What does applying ED mean? So ED is early decision. That's a binding agreement. If I get into the school, then I will attend, as opposed to early action, which is not binding. If I get in, then I can attend, but I can also choose to go somewhere else. Would you recommend applying REA to a competitive college top choice that I would definitely attend? For example, Stanford. So REA, for people who don't know, is restrictive early action. What restrictive early action means is it's early action in the sense that it's not binding, but it's restrictive in the sense that you cannot apply to any other private colleges. You can only apply to other public universities. So a few schools, some of the top schools, Stanford, Harvard, Yale, they do this. It's sort of like a mixture between ED and EA. It's not ED in the sense, again, that it's not binding, but it is more restrictive than ED, because you can't apply to, for example, you can't apply to Harvard and MIT. MIT has early action, straight early action, not restrictive early action, right? But if you apply to Harvard, you can't apply to any other private universities. You could apply to, public university, UMass's, or other public universities in other states and things like that. Whether you should apply REA to Stanford really depends on your own profile, right? I would do that if you have a really legitimate shot. If you have an application that is really in tip-top form and you are a strong candidate, then that can make sense. If you're just doing it because you really think it's a great school, but you haven't really researched and put the effort in to make yourself have the background that's going to make you competitive, it might not be the best plan. Allah alam. Can you apply for an easier accepted major, then switch to a harder one in the college? Oftentimes, but not always, right? Some colleges like there are certain majors, nursing and engineering are two that spring to mind that are way more difficult to get into than other programs. And a lot of times colleges don't want people to do that where they come in on one program and then try to switch to another. So there are exceptions, but in general, at many colleges, it's very easy. And even at those colleges, it is possible to, you have to jump through a lot of hoops, and it may be very competitive to get to switch into that major, but it is sometimes possible. So that's something which is sort of school specific that you need to do some research about. Where can we find acceptance rate by major for each university and college? I don't, I mean, there are a lot of great resources for researching colleges. The Fisk guide is one of my favorites, although I don't think it has that particular information. Unigo is another really good one. I would probably Google that individually. There may be a clearinghouse that does that. I know I discovered that when I was doing some research for today with certain universities, but I didn't find a place that listed it for every single school. So you might have to do it on a case-by-case basis. Hamza, you shouldn't have an infinite number of schools on your list, so you should be able to do that. If you aren't 100% sure yet, do you recommend applying undecided or applying for a specific major that I like, but that is competitive and somewhat difficult? I don't want to be too narrow-minded. It is okay to apply undecided, right? It is not a death sentence. At the same time, like ideally during high school, you're doing things to try to become less undecided. Like it is good to have some sort of vision, but it's not mandatory. I've had students apply undecided in the past and did fine with the process. Again, hard to answer with a universal answer. Let me just see if there are any more questions about this. I'm just gonna go back down to the bottom because I know you guys are still here. What's the difference between liberal arts schools and other schools? All right, good question. Liberal arts schools, so liberal arts schools focus often on teaching you sort of how to think, I guess, is one way to think about it. But the big difference is a liberal arts school versus like a big research university, right? So if you take a place like BU is really more of a research university, Boston University. It's a really large campus, mainly focuses on its graduate students and so on. Whereas you take a school like Williams or Amherst, right, which are predominantly undergraduate. They're focused on, their undergraduate students. So in general, these smaller liberal arts schools, they focus more on a broader curriculum where they're trying to, give you exposure to a variety of, things both within humanities and within and within the different STEM majors and things. Whereas, a trade school at the extreme, will be training you in just one particular thing. Is U Chicago a liberal arts school? I mean, I would definitely think of it. I think University of Chicago for me is one of the most challenging schools, not just for STEM, but also for humanities. I think University of Chicago is legendary for how rigorous of an education it is. And it's an extremely academic place. It's a place where if you love knowledge, you love school, you love, writing and things like that, it can be a great school for you. If you don't like those things, it would be a very, very difficult place to find a lot of peace. It's a very, very different campus culture than a lot of other schools. What is the best way to tackle their weird essay prompts? Yeah, University of Chicago is legendary for their wacky essay prompts. One of them was like find X, or where's Waldo really? and they always have new exciting ones every year, and you can go back into the archive. I think, you know, in a lot of ways, those essays are supposed to be fun. Like try to find you know, a topic, like read through some of the old ones, read through this, do some brainstorming until you get an idea that sort of excites you, that you're interested in. There's tons of you know, guides and sample essays and examples. The other thing is it doesn't have a word count, which is really sort of crazy. Like it's a totally different experience than almost any other school. But definitely, you know, it shouldn't feel like work writing that essay. You should be able to find something that excites you, and that you're you know, that you find yourself smiling as you're writing it, because you know, you found a topic that you actually care about. It definitely weeds a lot of people out. That's one of the reasons it's there, to try to, you know, prevent people from applying who wouldn't fit there. Do I help in SAT prep? I have partnerships with various people and organizations who help in SAT prep. So if you're interested in that, you can reach out to me, and I can connect you with people who I know do a really good job with that. I don't personally do it right now. At some point down the line, that may be under the 5 before college umbrella, because I know it's obviously something people are looking for. But there are a lot of people who really specialize in that, and at this point, I prefer to connect people with real specialists in that area. How frequently do you meet with the student? Do you give live feedback on the essays, or is it submit and wait for your feedback 24 to 48 hours? So during the office hours, the way the office hours work is I'm in the main room, and I'm able to answer whatever questions you have. So in the boot camp, students who wanted to get feedback from me would bring their essays there, and they would ask for essay feedback there. Obviously, there may be other people in the room, but I don't think that should be that big a deal. You also have the opportunity to go into breakout rooms with the essay mentors, who are essay specialists, my wife and some other really amazing essay mentors, and they're able to give you one-on-one live feedback. If you for the written feedback, yeah, there will be some level of turnaround time for that. You know, obviously, just, you know, it depends on the volume and so on, but we would try to get things back you know, as quickly as possible. But I definitely would recommend, you know, really taking advantage of the live feedback, and then obviously during our one-on-one sessions, you know, that's another time. You know, we don't have unlimited one-on-ones together, so if you want a lot of help with the essays and you want a lot of one-on-one support, that's where adding that that essay mentorship can really be helpful. Then you really have someone who really has the time to get into the weeds, you know, on your timeline, on your schedule. That's something that you can do. How is your program different from other college advisors? Good question. I mean, I think, you know, obviously we incorporate a lot of Islam into how we you know, how we do things, how we run things. You know, I think that's one portion. I think I do have somewhat of a specialty with some of the top tier schools, just because of my background, you know, especially here on the East Coast, but increasingly around the country. Like, you know, we have a lot of experience with sort of more of the Ivy type schools. But I think the main thing is because I think Muslim families and students have different priorities in this college process, and having someone who really understands them and where they're coming from can be very, very helpful as you're evaluating colleges, and as you're trying to figure out how to tell your sort of unique story and so on. And then you know, I think also like the focus on community, the focus on working with another cohort of other talented Muslims is something. What's the difference between liberal arts school? Okay, I think we answered that one. What can my ninth grader son do now to enable him to have a strong college application? So we have other programs like Find Your Qibla aimed at that age group, which is one of the goals of Find Your Qibla is to help students launch a passion project. So one of the best things that a younger student can do is get involved and actually start some sort of an organization, some sort of a social media channel, some sort of a small business or something like that, that they can work on, that they're just going to get real world experience. They're going to actually have the opportunity to do the worst thing in school, which is to fail, right? Failing in school is the worst thing you can do in life. Life rewards failures. So what we really want to try with our younger students, and all the students really, is to try to get them to do things that are going to have an impact in the real world. Do things that are Googleable, that people can find, that are documented somehow, that they're going to struggle with, that there's not going to be a one simple solution for, and get their hands dirty with that, and that's going to give them tons of essay fodder for future years. So just get out and experience the world. The only thing that prevents you from being able to write good college essays is if you never do anything, if you're never putting yourself out there, if you're always just stuck behind a screen and you're not actually pursuing any goals, then you don't have that much to write about. Otherwise, if you just go off and try to take advantage of your high school experience, then you can. How much does PSATs matter in applying to colleges? Colleges do not see your PSATs. PSATs are only for you to help give you a baseline to know how you'll prepare. Obviously, if you qualify for national merit as your 11th grade, then colleges would know that. But in general, PSATs have zero impact on college applications, but they do help you prepare your own things. Will you get the recording? Yes, inshallah. What if my daughter is still in 10th grade? Do you have programs for them? Yep. So the Find Your Qibla program is really the ideal first step towards working with us. This Ihsan Admissions Intensive is sort of the end point on this 5-year journey, right? And Find Your Qibla is the beginning point. And then in the in-between point, there is another program that we have. So we will inshallah open enrollment in Find Your Qibla sometime later. I'm trying to get this program for the seniors squared away and fully organized and functional, and then we'll turn our attention to the other things. Is there still time to do 5 before college? Yes, inshallah. I think I answered that before. You're absolutely able to do this program. The enrollment is open until October 1st, inshallah. Should we aim for community college versus university if my child has no clue what to do with his life? There's absolutely nothing wrong. There should be no shame associated with community college. In certain places like California, that's like the obvious and most easy path to the UC system. So I wouldn't just go to community college because you don't have any idea what you're doing in your life. You want to really focus on trying to figure out and use this college process, if you haven't before, to start thinking, start having those hard conversations about, what we're really aiming. A lot of students who find school to be an environment that they don't particularly enjoy, when you attach things to the real world, then suddenly things become much more interesting and so on. So community colleges can be great places, but I wouldn't, I've had students who are not ready for college of any kind, community college or otherwise, when they're they're just they're not at a point, whether it's maturity or just interests, where they're going to benefit from any form of college. And sometimes those people need to go to the school of hard knocks for a while. And there was a great history teacher at Al Noor who, he decided to work at a pizza place, and he worked at a pizza place for 7 years until he finally just had enough. And he realized that that was not the life he wanted for himself. And then he went back and he funded his way through school and got his master's. And and for some students, they need to make the decision that they want to be there. They want to do this and so on. So I don't know. Obviously, every student is different, but now you said 5 years is the best time to start. However, what advice would you give to students who started thinking it serious about college a little bit late? I mean, so this program itself, like I'm potentially likely working with some students that I am meeting for the first time, months or less before their college applications are due. So obviously there's still stuff we can do. Like this whole program is, we're going to try to do it. The difference is when we look at your activities list as you're a senior, I can't say, okay, can you go back and change what you did your 9th grade summer? Why did you waste that time? Why, how come you say you want to do computer science, but you've never done anything remotely connected to computer science in the past? Like you can't go back and rewrite history. That's why starting early makes sense. But the best time to start was yesterday. The second best time to start is today, right? Whenever people are ready to work, they should start. Do you offer a la carte service, for example, just essay editing? That's not something that we do at this point. I, uh, I found that I wasn't getting the same level of results from that. That said, those services do exist, and you can find people out there if you're just looking for help on one essay here or there. Then there are people out there who are willing to do that. What I've found is usually when you do that one meeting, it's like, oh, okay, well then I need more, and it ends up costing just as much or more for a much less comprehensive type service, much less ownership on the part of both the student and the advisor. What is the cost for one-on-one essay coaching? Right, so this program which involves some one-on-one, or maybe you're asking about the junior thing. Sorry, the mentorship thing. So it is possible to add the tier where you get to work with the one-on-one mentor, and the cost of that I believe is $1,500. It's an additional $1,500 for the 12 meetings, weekly meetings with the mentor. So sorry if I answer that. Do you personally help students, or is it members of your team? So in this one, yes, I am meeting with students myself. I do I do have a team, and I would hope to use them as well, but I am there are at least 5 meetings with me directly. Inside the one-on-one office hours, right? There may be other team members. There are other people that I've spoken to, who have a lot of expertise in certain subjects, which I might connect people with, and other things. But I am very much involved in this at this point. What is the link for the slideshow? It will be sent in the email that we send for everything. Anything else? How can I contact you? Okay, let me go to this next slide. This is my WhatsApp number, 617-610-7084. That's the easiest way to reach out to me for SAT prep. When does registration open? That's a good question. I'm as the company is around for longer, I am hoping to, have a juniors program that will sort of filter right into this more intensive program, and the intensive program will happen, sort of starting in the summer, to really take full advantage of that. We did the college essay boot camp this summer, so I'm not 100% sure of what it will look like next year, but very likely we'll start helping with the stuff in the summer before senior year. Good question. Sen has no idea how to start the personal essay. Do you help with brainstorming? Yes, we did a 4-hour brainstorming exercise at the start of the boot camp, all of which all of those materials are there. And it's also something, when we meet one-on-one and we realize where he's stuck, then that's the sort of thing that I would help him with. And even some simple exercise like we did here, those 11 details or 3 details exercise that we did, can help get some ideas unstuck. I think we're just about done. Yeah, I think that's just about the end of the questions. Alhamdulillah. All right. Barakallah feek. I hope this was helpful. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put khair and barakah. If you still have questions, always feel free to reach out to me on WhatsApp. I hope that some of you guys will join this program. And if not this year, then in future years when you are a senior. And I hope that this provided a lot of value for you guys, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.